When I think about getting back to the basics, those are the things I'm looking at. That's where we're doubling down, man. Like I have literally doubled down as an agency by bringing in a full-time risk management practice leader who can go out and put all that stuff in. Everybody's talking about the hard market and they're griping and moaning about their remarkets, reshops, renewals, whatever you want to call them. Like that's a plague. Well, thank God. I mean, if you don't want to do them, feel free to send them my way. I'll remarket them for you and take that off your plate. But this is a great time to have the conversations that people might not have been willing to have in the last several years when the market wasn't as hard. You're not going to get an account that's a dog today and be able to work a miracle this year. It's just not going to happen, right? You can't take an account that has a less than stellar risk profile and go negotiate that rate decrease or, get better than trend with any of the carriers. What you can do is you can explain to them what they could have been doing all along to not have to deal with what they're dealing with now, and how you have the ability to make sure this doesn't happen to them moving forward. And I think that's where a lot of people miss out. The hard market is nothing I'm ever going to complain about, man. I mean, we've had at least a 20 to 25% organic lift on revenue growth just from renewal. And those are for the accounts we're doing well. I mean, we have carriers hitting us with auto increases here in Florida that it's not a matter of whether or not you're going to get a rate decrease. It's whether or not you're going to get a renewal quote from them. So 25% is about as good as you're going to get on some of this stuff. We're dealing with an epidemic with plumbers right now where people are not wanting to write plumbers due to claims and the exposure from water damage and everything else. And I feel like there's just so many of the people that we compete with and we see on the streets that are not seeing past the premium and getting to the point where they're looking at what's really driving this stuff. And I mean, one of the big ones, and this is something that I formalized and put in as a program with an educational, learning management tract and educational resources for clients, but it goes back to quality control. I mean, I don't know how many people out there write plumbers right now that don't even ask them if they have a formalized quality control program, let alone talk to them about why it's important and, if needed, help them implement that. But I mean, that's the way we need to be thinking. Not every risk that's going to come to you is pristine. And in fact, the pristine risks, maybe they will, maybe they won't. I mean, I've seen quite a few that have been really nice opportunities that are still out shopping, and it looks like the agent's pretty much doing what they need to do on the account. But then we're seeing those ones that have always sort of teetered on the fence. They didn't believe in investing in risk management. They didn't believe in loss control. They didn't believe in, pre-injury management and having everything in place so that when that claim does happen, everybody knows their role and responsibility. And I mean, when I think about getting back to the basics, those are the things I'm looking at. That's where we're doubling down, man. Like I have literally doubled down as an agency by bringing in a full-time risk management practice leader who can go out and put all that stuff in. And, yeah, we do outsource the workers' comp claims handling to Zenjuries, but the reason we do that is they're experts at it. Our loss ratio on our book dictates that's the right business decision. And the reality is it's less money for me to do that than it is for me to hire a body who's likely less qualified to do the same thing. And so I think, for me, getting back to the basics is looking at those tasks that we're having to do over and over again and say, what do I need to do? What can I delegate? And what can I outsource? And I mean, it's really that simple. And Zenjuries is a great example of something that I outsource. Why? Because number one, I don't like doing it. Number two, I don't have the time to do it. It's not an effective use of my time when I can hire somebody to do it for a fraction of the cost that does a better job. Like that's just common sense to me.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, I think that's why we did the same thing with the hotline. I have somebody in my office that has the capacity to do the claims, but I don't have the capacity to learn every single DOT regulation. I don't have the capacity to become OSHA certified or be able to go perform a mock OSHA audit for somebody. And so if we can have a way for people to make those kind of phone calls and get the information they need, I think it's definitely a win-win because then I don't feel the pressure to have to do all that research myself. And I think the point that you've made about having your full-time, risk manager, I mean, I feel like what she has done, and I made some notes, by the way, is she's helped you connect a lot of the dots, right? And say, you've
Well,
got all this stuff
it's an
out here.
adoption. Yeah, the thing is too, it's an adoption rate thing, right? So we've always had a lot of these programs, but if it's going to fall on me to make sure that they're implemented, which is where a lot of it falls, or the producer, it's just not going to happen. Not, I mean, it'll happen on paper, which is where I think a lot of the people in our industry are. Where, oh yeah, we got that program in place. Here it is, and we'll make it a part of the submission. Well, that doesn't always cut mustard, man. So having Abby to be able to be the person who's, I mean, and she is legitimately a bulldog. She's a very nice and polite bulldog, but I can tell you the adoption rate is there. So when we have an account that looks like it slipped a little bit, or one where we know we've had this deficiency and we need to get ahead of it before something really bad happens, trust me, man, it is like the greatest feeling of peace I could possibly have to say, Abby, I need you to go call this person and make sure this happens. Get them enrolled in this program, and I want you to let me know when it's done and what you need from me along the way, and I don't have to deal with it anymore. So now it's not as much about just representing it at the point of sale. It's actually getting it in place. And it's not like we were completely ignoring this stuff, but if I'm being honest, probably 50% maybe of the people actually would do the things we asked them to do and told them they needed to do. And there would come a point where I'd just be like, you know what? Screw it. I'm not going to spend any more time on this. If this person doesn't care about their business more than I do, what am I doing? Now I'm not giving them that option. I've got somebody that's a dedicated full-time resource to make sure that that stuff gets done. And it, like, the evidence is almost immediate. Number one, you see that the culture in the company changes, but you also start seeing that there's reductions in frequency across the book, reductions in severity across the book, and that's going to be a predictor for future mod decreases.